William, wonderful to meet you, sir. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Sure, happy to be here.
So, before we get into all of the wonderful things that you're doing, there's so many things going on. I want to know this. I always ask this up front. 6 years ago, this pandemic changed our lives, changed so much about what we're doing. How did you get through that era, and how has it changed the way that you do things now?
Actually, it was about how to work remotely. But interestingly, I lived in New York and New Jersey working for my company for decades and had decided in 2019 to buy a home in Arizona. I've always been East Coast, New York, New Jersey.
Yeah,
And we bought a home in Arizona because I was going to work there remotely for my company in New Jersey for a few years. I have white hair before I retired.
yeah, yeah.
And it seemed like a great place to have adventures and things like that. So I got used to being a remote worker about 6 months before the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
I worked for Bayer, a global consumer health medicines company, and by that time I was ahead of the game on remote working, but I still got to deal with my colleagues in Switzerland, in New Jersey, and all around the world. So it gave me a skill because my business, my day job was leading workshops, physical workshops to come up with creative new ideas for products and things like that. I became skilled at doing it remotely, and my company discovered, hey, we could save a lot of travel costs this way.
Yeah.
There's still magic to doing it in person. There's things you can do there with physical things and examples, but 80% of it got done quite well remotely.
So let's get into exactly what you do on a daily basis. You're an entrepreneur, you're a leader, you're an author, speaker. There's so many things that go into it. But if you synthesize that for a 12-year-old at career day in a school, how would you explain what you do on a daily basis to a child?
Talk about what I do today. I'll talk later about how I got here.
Yeah,
Um, I help people notice mistakes before they make them. It's like somebody that walks with you and points out a puzzle. Oh, don't step in that one so you can keep your shoes dry.
yeah. So, so what did you want to be when you were young? When you were that age, what was your dream?
At age 12, I was probably still in the baseball mode. Mickey Mantle was my hero. That's
Yeah,
how old I am.
yeah,
And I wanted to play for the Yankees. So I was playing pony ball little league as hard as I could, but that didn't work out, of course. But I had
yeah.
fun.
Yeah, totally. So, what were the early things in your life growing up that gave you this acumen for being a business leader, being an entrepreneur, being successful? How did all of that happen?
I guess I just had it in me. Very early, I was a Cub Scout, and they were selling greeting cards from a company called Cheerful Card Company, door to door,
Yeah,
to raise money for the troop, for the pack. And we all got our assignment. Here's your 10 boxes to sell. I sold out in about 10 minutes
wow.
because I went around. I had friends and neighbors down the block who knew me well and they helped. But I was very good at that, just door to door cold calling. So that was the first one. When I became older, I became they don't exist as much anymore. A bicycle newspaper delivery,
Oh,
where
yeah.
I'd go do that. The paper was Newsday on Long Island, and I would see people every week when I had to collect the cash for them and bring it back. These are the old days.
Yeah,
Um, from there, I always was creative. When I was wondering how might I do something of my business of my own. One of them in the days where everybody had answering machines for their landline telephones, I was going to create and record character voices answering for them. I did it on my own. It was a lot of fun. I never commercialized it though. But
yeah,
that and so I kept on making up stuff.
sure. So my dad was born in Brooklyn, raised in Long Island. I remember going up there in the 80s, and I've always been in journalism and fascinated by newspapers. And I remember Newsday, the Times, and all those newspapers. It was so much fun to get it all in person up there. So I got a lot of good memories. So give me an idea of your career. If you were to like give me a snapshot of how we evolved to where you're at today, take me from the beginnings and how all these ideas and how this life and business is evolved to where you're at today.
Sure, in 10 seconds or less. Uh, I always wanted to be a writer or creative or something. So I went to college for business and communications, an MBA in communications. I got that.
Yeah.
Um, I My first job was as an intern with a PR company, and the PR company was working for a bunch of major advertising agencies on Madison Avenue in New York. So
Yeah.
we were writing copy to get their campaigns written about so they look smart and things like that. That led, after a few years when the internship ended, into a copywriting job in an advertising agency. And I became copywriter. It is a small agency on Long Island in Hempstead, if you know the area.
Yeah.
We would have local clients, local banks, local transmission repair shops, people like that. We would do retail ads for you and radio stuff. I got involved in not just writing, but client relationships. And then I go to the studio and he helped produce. I wasn't the on-air talent, but we'd go produce the radio commercials that drove business for them. Let's see. That led to a after up. While I was working at the agency, the owner came in and said, "Hey, business isn't that good right now. We're going to be laying off in about 6 months. If you wanted to look for something, go ahead." So I used my network to help me knock on doors and look for opportunities, still wanting to be advertising, creative, something like that. And I got hired into the advertising department of a large corporation. Then it was called Sterling Drug. It later got bought by Bayer, which is the company I worked for the next 38 years.
Wow.
I was in-house copywriter for consumer medicines packaging and for their advertising for markets outside the United States. I was writing in English. We would type it up on a typewriter. It would get faxed to Singapore, places like that, and somebody else would produce the ads.
Wow. That's amazing.
And my job at Bayer evolved because the company continued to change and change and change with market opportunities, with acquisitions, corporate acquisitions, and with technology changing. Over time, I became a brand manager on brands like Alka-Seltzer and Bear Aspirin. And that was quite successful. Then I still wanted to be more creative, and I got hired to go to the R&D part of the company and help them ideate for new product ideas, for how to create new strategies, how to solve problems. So I got trained on creative problem solving techniques and on design thinking. And for 10 years, I led workshops all over the world on new product ideas based on understanding the consumer's particular health need and their user experience with other challenges, other solutions, so we could make them better. So I got a real skill set in solving problems and looking at things through the consumer's eyes.
Yeah. Well, I think about that show Undercover Bosses that was on for a while. And it was always about the people that had the feet on the ground. They were the ones that
Mhm.
knew how all of it worked. Those were the people. That was where the real wisdom of any company is at.
Absolutely right. And shame on top management if they never realized that. I love that show, by the way.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I still wanted to be creative. During the last 10, 12 years I worked at Bayer, I retired a couple of years ago. Um, I also, my wife, my family, and I launched a side gig where we created carnival games. These carnival and party games that we sold to rental stores who then rented them out to their retail consumer customers. The We got into that because my niece was having a Make-A-Wish carnival one year in the summer and wanted all of her family to help make money for the charity.
Yeah.
We called ahead and rented from a rental company nearby a dunk tank. Dunk tanks, throw a ball, hit a
Oh,
target,
yeah.
people fall in.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks before the event, the rental company called me and said, "Hey, sorry, you know about the drought in the Northeast. We're not allowed to rent things that require 500 gallons. What else do you want?" I said, "Nah, we got this."
Yeah.
So my wife and I sat at the kitchen table, back of a napkin, and we said, "How might we deliver this fun, amazing experience of somebody getting soaked without needing 500 gallons?" So with a plywood board from Home Depot, 2x4 going across, and a basketball rim, we cobbled together a game that later became called Pitch Burst that does the same thing in a different way. You throw the ball, somebody's sitting in a chair under a basket, and in the basket is a water balloon. So somebody throws a ball, hits the target, the water balloon gets popped, and the water falls down on them. half a gallon instead of 500 gallons.
Yeah.
We took that to the carnival, and it was the hit of the carnival. We
Wow.
made $500-600 for the carnival in 4 hours. People were lined up around the block to play our game. This was cool. It was nice. We went home hot, sweaty, satisfied we'd done something good. The next day, the phone began to ring. Hey, I love that game. How can I get that for my parties?
Wow.
So then my business development hat began to work, and we looked into patenting and found out it had never been done before, filed for a provisional patent, and we went down the path of making that our business
Wow.
as a side gig. And this is where I got into mistake making and really observing people's mistakes, since I made a bunch of them myself. That game that we used at that carnival that day, we had made ourselves out of wood. We painted it. It looked as nice as we could, but it was a rough thing.
Yeah.
When we decided to go in the business and got the patent, we got an SBA loan to make 100 of them and borrowed money. We could work in advertise in rental management, rental store magazines. This is before a lot of online stuff was available. So we spent all the money to make 100 units and advertise. Well, we succeeded and sold in the first winter season. We sold 60 of the games, and they were in storage until the weather got warm. When the weather got warm, finally the rental companies were able to go out and rent them out to their customers. And that's when the phone began ringing for, I would call them uh-oh reasons. The screws were coming out. The wood was breaking. The logo panel was coming off. The basket doesn't hang right. So it was very hard learning for us. We had a brilliant idea. We had proven with real people that it worked, but in commercial use, we hadn't used the right materials.
Yeah.
We learned later that it should be much more durable and much more simple for them to set up, operate, and put away again. So we lost most of the money we had borrowed, and were stressed. It took us a couple of years and another additional loan against my good corporate salary to hire the right person to design the same game using our patent, but make it out of steel. So it was much more durable. That game, that was in 2001. That's still being sold today. We sold off the brand, but I realized when I began to study how people make mistakes and why business people make mistakes, or in real life they make mistakes. I realized there are some common patterns and some common behavioral causes. And I did a study last year of 300 entrepreneurs to study this. I learned that they are stress, fatigue, distractions, faulty assumptions. In my case, with this particular one we put out first, it was a lot of faulty assumptions. But when the phone was ringing every hour with some complaints, the stress went up there, and I began to work 24/7 to try to solve it. By the way, if I sold you something, I'm going to make good. We were busy that whole time sending out spare parts, new instructions, and when I had to, we did a whole bunch of refunds with money I didn't have. It was out of my pocket.
Wow.
So it's been an adventure.
Yeah.
Uh, Now I consider myself a business mistake prevention specialist, because I've studied with 300 entrepreneurs what are the factors and how does it happen that they impact people's decisions and actions.
Yeah.
And the big aha is when you realize you're under stress and you're exhausted and you got distractions going on. There are steps, simple things you can do to mitigate the risk of making at least the preventable mistakes.
Yeah.
They include taking a breath. They include asking someone else. They include they're more than common sense, because you don't think of them when you're the guy in the hot seat. And the story is, you went in to drain the swamp and you're surrounded by alligators or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's tough when the S hits the fan.
Yeah.
There are steps you can and should take to protect yourself and your business.
So who's been an inspirational, heroic force for you, whether it's another entrepreneur or someone in your life that's allowed you to get through these mistakes, to help coach others through them?
My hero from the beginning, besides Mickey Mantle,
Yeah.
is Walt Disney. Walt had the vision when he went to the theme park with his kids in Denmark and saw, oh, what was that? I forgot what it's called, but it was theme based and it was much better. He decided he wanted to do Disneyland and couldn't afford it, mortgaged his house. He believed in his dream so much that he risked everything. Turns out it worked out okay for him. That
Yeah.
doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
But Walt and his thinkings are very inspirational to me.
A few years ago, I went to Disney World in Florida, and I happened to be reading a book about somebody that lived in Kansas City. He was 103 years old. He had a friend, and there was all this wisdom. And they talked about Walt Disney when he was in Kansas City. We used to have a place called Electric Park, and that's where he got a lot of the ideas for fountains and lighting. So it's
Mhm.
always weird to think about how instrumental Kansas City was in his development, along with these other adventures that he went on that eventually became this theme park behemoth.
And he did fail. He failed as
Yeah,
trying to be a cartoonist, failed in Hollywood the first time, and there were failures even during his Disney days. Two very quick stories. One is one of the joys in my entrepreneurial business was the fact that when we got this pitch burst game done right in steel, so it was durable, we sold it very widely to rental companies, theme parks, things like that, and a theme park company in Orlando that deals with a mouse, I can't name them, bought one of my pitch burst games for every one of their resorts so that they could pull it out at recreation time for the kids by the pool.
wow.
And my joy was I went down a couple times to go observe this and support my client. And I just love seeing the joy on the kids' faces.
Yeah,
That's the rewarding part of all the stuff you go through when things go wrong.
yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this. What is it that motivates you every day when the alarm clock goes off to get up to do all of this work, to do it at a high level, take care of your family, your own soul? What is that energy and vision for you?
Since I've been through those highly stressful moments when you're up at 4 a.m. trying to solve a problem, you don't know how to do it. I want to give back and help others. Everybody's got a different business or life situation, but help others going through that know they're not alone. There are resources you can learn and tools you can simply apply to help you. Not totally solve your problem necessarily, but help you keep your direction going the right way.
So if you had a dream tonight, you ran into the 18-year-old version of you and you walked into that home you lived in at 18, and there was a film projector, and that young version, or your version, hit the play button and played like a 60-second highlight reel of the life you've lived. Would that young version of you believe that this is the life that you've crafted and lived?
Uh, no, I didn't, because I didn't get to join the Yankees.
Yeah.
Um, but no, it would be unbelievable because the way my professional career has gone, it took turn after turn after turn. I was rather than driving it, sometimes I was a follower, and sometimes I was taking advantage of it. So no, so the to me, if I wanted to talk to that 18-year-old, it would be believe in what you believe in. If you've got a dream, chase it because it is possible. It may not come out exactly like you wanted, but it is possible.
So of everything that you've accomplished and you've done in your career, what are you the proudest of?
My my kids, first of all,
Yeah.
amazing people that I helped create. Um, the observing of kids playing with my carnival games and the joy that it brought to them and their family, I'm very proud of that.
Yeah.
Um, and finishing this study last year of 300 people who've gone through things like I did to look at the major patterns so that I can be, first, I have more expertise, but I can help more people. I'm pretty proud of that too. Didn't mention I'm a volunteer with the SCORE organization that helps small businesses. And I see a new entrepreneur just about every week,
Yeah.
totally different businesses. I learn from that. I'm inspired by their stories, and I'm happy to share from my own experience and expertise ways to help them have a better chance of succeeding.
If you could meet one entrepreneur on anybody that is a big business mind or entrepreneur that's alive today, who would you love to meet and talk to?
Very inspired by Steve Jobs,
Yeah,
by by his ability to, in his brain, synthesize things that didn't exist, and his storytelling capabilities. I love stories. I hope I tell good stories myself,
yeah,
but his were spectacular because they had the point, they inspire, and they actually warn you not to do it in a nice way.
yeah. What's the word retirement mean for you in earnest? When you see that big word in the sky, twirling lights around it, what does it mean to you?
For me, it's already
Yeah,
a time to give back, but also selfishly, it's about with my wife. We have been traveling the world.
yeah.
Uh, we love good storytelling, so we see a lot of movies, as many Broadway shows as we can see. And I love reading books.
What's been one of the most unexpectedly magical places you've traveled to?
Two places come to mind. One is in the Alps in Switzerland. We once traveled to Mount Pilatus in the top of the mountains and stayed in a hotel at the top. So when we opened the windows the next day, there's this beautiful snow-capped
Wow.
mountains. It was just peaceful and inspiring. The opposite of that is the Gold Coast of Australia. We went snorkeling in, I guess it was the Pacific Ocean. I don't know. It's just spectacular and beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. So everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
A loyal, creative thinker who's helpful.
So what's your best New York Yankees Mickey Mantle memory in person?
I got to go to the old Yankee Stadium and see him play once. I was in Cub Scouts or something like that. And just being there in the stadium, the big field of green grass. Billy Crystal talks about that a lot, how
Yeah.
amazing it was just to be at the stadium. Uh,
It's
and
yeah.
and I can probably name the lineup of the 1961 Yankees when I was like 5 or 6 years old or something.
Wow.
Um, but it was just impressive. I didn't know till I was much older of his off the field escapades that kind of tarnished it a little bit. But he was still a fantastic home run hitter.
Yeah. So he's from Oklahoma. I take my son down. There's a theme park down there, and they got a statue in front of their AAA affiliate.
Mhm.
I think they're called the Comets for the Dodgers now. So it's always cool to see that. So when I was in college, I wanted to be in sports broadcasting, and I took out a loan and went to a broadcasting camp. And Bob Costas was the guy that we were all going to meet. All of us were sleepless before we met him. Well, I had a baseball that I wanted him to sign, and I knew that he had a Mickey Mantle card in his wallet, and he always put it up in the broadcast booth. And I said, "Listen, Bob, I'm going to keep this ball with me when I'm calling games, when I'm doing my thing." And I remember he grabbed me by the shoulders and he said, "You got to get a hold of yourself, kid. You still got time." And it was all because prefaced off of that Mickey Mantle card, which is pretty. I mean, it's a pretty widely known story with him. I think it had something to do with his father. It was very sentimental, but he always had that card with him. So, and funny enough, the last Major League Baseball game that he ever broadcast, ever was a part of, was during that Yankees playoff run with the Royals 2 years ago. He
Mhm.
called it quits after that, which I find kind of weird and bittersweet, but he was here when he did it, so it was good.
Amazing.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to reach out, they want to learn more about what you're doing, all the wonderful things you're doing, where do they go? Where's the best place?
There's a website I want to send you to, but I have to explain it in 10 seconds first.
Sure.
I was so curious of how others experience and perceive their own risk of making mistakes that I made an online quiz. It's 12 questions, takes 5 minutes. If you're running your own business, it's helpful to see where are you risky based on the 6 factors I mentioned, the stress, the fatigue, things like that. So that URL is mistakeriskquiz.com.
Okay.
And you can find me there as well.
Okay.
Mistakeriskquiz.com.
Okay. I will put that link in the show notes. So I got a final question. If you could get into a time machine and go back in the history of Yankees baseball or in general and see one event, where would you go?
Yankees baseball. I would. I like our time. I love the technology and things like that today,
Yeah.
and earlier times. But I would go see Mickey Mantle play as a minor leaguer when he was just starting up. When you could see that potential.
Yeah. Wow, what a great memory. That would be wonderful, especially with spring training in the air. William, this has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your story. I really appreciate it.
Joe, fantastic to meet you.
Yes.
Take care.
Thank you.